Hello and welcome back to Marvels of Water. This is the second in our series of remedies on hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy remedies that we want to become skillful at so that we can use them to be a blessing to many people. In this video, we're going to be looking at fomentations. You may ask, what is a fomentation? Well, a fomentation is simply a wet, moist compress. Let's follow on to see exactly what the uses of fomentations can do. Well, before I get into that, actually, let's find out how we can make our fomentations. And then I'll let you know what fomentations can be used for. All right, so fomentation, as I said, is a wet, moist compress. And you can use towels for your fomentations. If you have bath towel, you can just simply fold your towel in half like that. And then you can fold it again. You want to make sure that you thoroughly wet this, and we're going to heat these towels, and that can be your fomentations. So there are several ways that we can prepare our fomentations so that we can apply them in order to bring about relief to whatever may be ailing the person. So we have our towel here. The first way that we can think of to make our fomentation, and it's the most convenient way, is to use a microwave. All right, so we would wet this down thoroughly, our fomentation, our towel, and then what we're going to do is wring it out. All right, we don't want it very, very dry, but we don't want it dripping either. So we folded it in half. All right, and then we fold it in half again, and then what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to roll this towel like so. And then what I will do is I will put this in a plastic bag, like a shopping bag, put this in a plastic bag, and I'm going to put this inside of my microwave. And I usually would like to prepare two, at least two, sometimes three. And I can put two or three, depending on the size of your microwave. Let's just say two. Place these in the microwave inside of the plastic bag. Leave the bag open just a little bit for a little vent of steam, and turn it on for maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes in some microwave. And then when you take it out of the microwave, you have really steaming, blazing hot fomentations ready to go, ready to apply. You might want to make sure that you use a hot mitt, because when these, take these out of the microwave, they will be very hot, and you want to make sure that you don't burn yourself. Okay, so that is one way of preparing fomentations. That's the microwave method. Another way of preparing fomentations is to get yourself a nice big pot of boiling water, of hot water, and you would take this same fold that I've showed you already. In this way, you don't have to wet it first, because you're going to wet it when you put it in the water. So I take this fold here, and what I want to do is I want to begin twisting it. All right? I'm simply twisting this. You see I'm doing here? I'm twisting it as much as I can. I'm creating a twist. Almost looks like a pretzel or something. So I have it folded. I have it twisted, and you have your pot of hot boiling water, and you're simply going to dip this down into the hot boiling water, all right? Without burning yourself, of course. And then you're going to pull it up and then stretch, pulling as hard as you can. And as you do that, because it's twisted, the water is going to pour out of it. And then you have your hot fomentation ready, all right? Now, the next way of preparing your fomentations, your hot pads, is there again. You want to create this roll. There again, like I said, you could prepare 2 or 3. For this method, you may want to prepare maybe 3 or 4. So let's say we have maybe 3 fomentations that are ready to go here. And for those of you that are familiar with canning, you get yourself a nice big pot. You have a rack in the bottom, and then you can simply place these down inside of the big pot on the rack. You can place 2, 3, 4, depending on your size of pot, or you can use one of those steamer baskets. And I'm telling you, these will get hot very, very fast. This method, the steaming method, it may take 30 to 40 minutes. Usually in about 30 minutes, they're nice and hot. Okay, so whether it's the steam method, or whether it's the boil method, or whether it's the microwave method, you can have very effective, very hot fomentations ready to go. So after you've taken those out of the microwave, or out of the boiling water, or out of the steamer, you want to have an insulating towel ready to go, because these will be too hot to put right onto the person. So you can have an insulating towel ready to go, and you would simply put it this way here. Actually, that works. Insulating towel, and have that. Actually, this towel is smaller than my other towel, but you simply want to make sure that you cover the fomentation in another towel. That's to protect the person, all right? So you have the one that you heated, and then you're going to have one that you are going to cover with, and this is what you're going to place on the person. Or let's say you are looking at dealing with a smaller area. You don't necessarily need a fomentation that large, all right? You can use a hand towel, all right? And you'll see me demonstrate that in a moment. So the same way, you can put that in your microwave or in the steamer. You can also use the boil method as you saw me do, all right? And also you would make sure that you place that inside a covering or insulating towel that you will place on the person. All right? So that's what fomentations look like, and that is a quick overview of how to prepare your fomentations. Now, you know, there are actual fomentation pads that you may be able to find. This is an actual fomentation pad. It's a thick piece of canvas. I knew a lady once that sold these. I don't know if we can contact her, but you may know of someone that actually makes these, and these are very good. They hold the heat a lot longer than the towels. Now, the towels work fine, and that's the beautiful thing about hydrotherapy, is because many times, simple remedies, you can use the things that are right on hand. You know, I remember once reading in the Bible, God asked Moses, "What is that in your hand?" So the same principle applies with us. We can use that whatever is in our hand. We don't necessarily need to go out and get this piece of expensive equipment over here, or get this gadget over here. Sometimes gadgets and equipment can be nice, but we want to use what's in our hand. However, these are not very expensive if you are so inclined. So you would simply heat these, one of these or several of these, the same way that I referred to for the towels. And this is an old Army blanket. Sometimes you may be able to acquire these, Army, Navy, surplus store, someplace like that. And when you're ready to insulate or wrap your fomentation, you simply would wrap it in there just like you saw me do with the towels, just like that. And then you have your fomentation ready to apply. All right, so now that I talked about that, let's consider now some things that you're going to need to administer the fomentations. Well, first, it would be nice if you had a bed. This table today works as our bed that we will have someone to come and lie down on, and we will use that. We are going to today administer a fomentations with a hot foot bath. So just so that you can be up on that, make sure that you go back and watch that video that we put out on the hot foot bath. We'll cover it just briefly here along with the fomentations. You don't always have to do a hot foot bath with a fomentations, but the one that we're doing today, we're going to combine a a hot foot bath with it. All right, so we need the fomentations, certainly. We talked about that. We're going to have the basin for the hot foot bath. We're going to have a basin for ice water. And we're also going to have a pitcher that we're going to use to replenish the hot water for the hot foot bath. Now, this is one of the most involved remedies, hydrotherapy remedies that there is. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention, that you're on top of it for this one. This one takes practice. So I wouldn't suggest that you could watch this one time and think you could do it. It should be practiced several times. All right, now let's look at some of the uses for fomentations. All right? So some of the indications, this is some of the times that fomentations will be good. Just like with the hot foot bath, we have colds, flus, coughs. It's also good for relieving congestion in the head or any inadequacy of circulation, pelvic cramps, pain, any of those types of things. Fomentations can be good. It's also really beneficial for people who are having chest congestion, things like asthma. It's also been used for pneumonia, actually. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to see your medical professional. You probably should. I think it's a good thing. But there are times that these remedies can be used in conjunction. The recommendation is also always that you talk to your medical professional. But certainly these can be used. As a matter of fact, back during the 1918-19 Spanish flu, or as they call it, influenza pandemic, there was a town, and it was in the Midwest. I think it might have been Minnesota, where this whole community used fomentations, and many lives were spared in that community from using fomentations. Many of the cases were prevented from going to the flu, to pneumonia, and to death, because in many of those cases where people died, there was many would go from the flu, then pneumonia would develop, and many people would die. As a matter of fact, one of the military bases were looked at as one of the better places that had the survival rates. But these sanitariums where Seventh-day Adventists were, and they were doing these water treatments, specifically the fomentations, their survival rates were even higher than on the military bases. So this can be used for many good results in many good ways. Viruses, colds, flus, those types of things. So those are some of the things that we can use for fomentations. I'm going to ask my friend, Mr. Joel, if he would come and assist me again. Now, there again, we use our imaginations. This is our bed. So Mr. Joel, he is perhaps having some suffering again from, what do you have this time? Maybe some. I don't know. You don't know? Well, okay, I'll tell you. Maybe some cold or flu or something like that. So Mr. Joel, he's going to get right here in the bed, and we're going to work on him. He's going to turn over on his back. Now, before he turns over on his back, let me just say, I mentioned one of the times that we would not do fomentations with a hot foot bath. Actually, there'd be many cases. Let's say he hurt his back or whatever, some muscle spasms or whatever. We could do fomentation. We could do fomentation to his back. It helps to bring about relief for muscles, muscle spasms, pain, all those types of things. I'll cover that more as I go. But today we're looking at something like colds, flus, those types of things. Even then, we don't have to use hot foot bath, but hot foot bath helps to speed up the whole healing of things. So here we go. We're going to cover it up from now. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to start, Mr. Joel, with a hot foot bath. There again, we have him in the hot foot bath there again. Go back and review that video if you didn't see that one. You'll see all about the hot foot bath. So for this remedy right here, we're going to have to keep the hot foot bath going, plus we're going to be doing adding the fomentations, all right? And I will walk you through as we continue on. So I already have the water in here. It's, let's say we started with 102 degrees, or I don't actually necessarily test with a thermometer. I can test with my elbow. We covered that. Okay, so, and the person, wherever you apply the fomentations, it's going to be bare, all right? So I have Mr. Joel covered up for now until I get my fomentation ready. All right. So you saw me prepare this fomentation when I introed this. So we have the fomentation. I like the microwave method. It's the easiest, but steam is my next one. All right. So, and we have Sir Joel bare now, and we can apply this one. He's having problems with cold, flu, that type of thing, so we can apply that right to the chest, okay? We have him in a hot foot bath. We're applying one right here to his chest because he's having chest colds, coughs, flu, and all that. So I have this here, and we're going to cover him up. But I want you to sit up just for one moment, because something that I neglected to add is when we're having someone doing this, we first want to make sure that we get you, yep, there we go. We want to make sure that we place one under the spine. This can be very relaxing. As a matter of fact, when you have a fomentation under the spine, this is excellent for someone who might be having problems with insomnia. So if you know someone who's having problems with insomnia, you want to make sure that you can place a fomentation to the spine. Okay, so I prepare one now for the chest. How my fomentation is ready, it's hot. I put it in my insulating towel that I mentioned earlier, and I apply that right directly to his chest, okay? And then I'm going to cover him up. So the hot water's hot that he has his feet in. I have a hot fomentation to his chest. Now, we want to keep this on the chest for about 3 minutes, all right? 3 minutes. And then after 3 minutes, I'll show you what I'm going to do next. But before I get to that, let's say that, well, we can do a 3-part to this particular remedy. I have his feet in the hot foot bath. I have the first fomentation on his chest, but he's also having some nasal congestion, some stuffiness. Now, the hot foot bath is enough to itself to sort of draw that down, to draw the congestion out of his nasal, out of his sinuses, nasal cavities. The hot foot bath can take care of that, but we want to apply some extra help to that area. So what we'll do here is we'll do something called a sinus pack, and that simply is a fomentation to the sinus area. So I have my little fomentation here, and I've heated it one of the 3 ways, in the microwave, the boiling method, or the steam method. So I have that here, and I have my covering towel here, and so it's in there, and then I'm simply going to fold it down like that. Okay, let me show you that, if you can see that. I simply fold it down like that, make a little triangle, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay that gently over Mr. Joel's face like that, all right? So that's going to apply some nice, hot, moist heat to that area. Now, some of you I know have used hot water bottles for pain or different conditions, also a heating pad, and those work very well, but you'll find that they won't work as well as fomentations. And you might ask, why is that? Well, because fomentations, we're looking at, right, the marvels of water, fomentations have water in them. They're hot from water. And so what that does is allow for a deeper, a more penetrating heat. going throughout the tissues, relieving that congestion, relieving the pain, wherever it may be. All right, so we're in here. And so now it's time for me probably to heat up. We're going to heat up the hot foot bath here. All right, remember that from that video? We'll keep that going. All right, and then while this is going, we are not just sort of sitting around, standing around. While this is going on, we want to make sure that we have our next fomentations pretty close to ready. So, as I said, we're going to keep these on for about 3 minutes. So somewhere about halfway, we want to make sure that we have our next fomentations tuned up and ready to go. So let's say it's about now a few seconds before the next fomentation, or the 3 minutes are up. And so what I'm doing here is I'm preparing my next fomentation, but you don't want it to prepare it so much ahead of time that it gets cold. Say it's time now, okay, bing, let's say it's been 3 minutes. So what I'm gonna do here now is I'm gonna take that first fomentation off, and notice that I covered him back up because we don't wanna leave the person exposed. Their body has been warmed up, so we wanna make sure that we keep them warm. So I remove this first fomentation, right? And I also talked about having ice cold water basin here. So this is when we have our washcloth and we pull back, and whatever area you're administering the fomentations to, you want to do something called a cold mitten friction. And so I'm going to scrub that area very briskly, all right? And that's going to help to close those pores, plus help to flush the blood and help with the circulation, all right? So I do that just about 15 seconds, all right? And then I cover them up. And what I want to make sure I do is that area, I want to make sure that I dry it. And then notice that each time I cover, I don't leave the person bare. And then I pull back, and then I'm nice with the next fomentation ready to go. And there's another 3 minutes there. And I will simply do the same thing with this one. I would, the cold mitten friction, certainly with the face, a lot more gentler, just sort of on the cheeks, on the sinus cavity, not real rough. You know, when you do the chest, you want to scrub it a little bit where you're seeing the red, but you're going to see the red from the heat anyway. So just gently scrub these areas, all right? And then you come with a fresh, new fomentation. So as we do this, you may ask, okay, so how many are we doing? How long? Whatever. Something like colds, chest, flu, if you think about someone who is maybe suffering from, let's say, some sort of virus. Like I said, a flu is a virus. Well, I would do anywhere from 5 to 7 exchanges of fomentations if I were dealing with that. Making sure that I put at least 5 to 7 fomentations and continuing to heat up the water for the feet. We can put the towel underneath the bucket so it won't slide. Yeah, continuing to heat up the water for the hot foot bath, and we'll continue this round. There again, we always want to make sure that we have water for the person to drink. When they're in this position, laying down like this, you may have to lift them up so that they can drink their water. We also always want to do that. And there again, as I said in the first video, we always want to make sure that when we are doing a hydrotherapy remedy, or any for that matter, we want to see if the person is willing to pray. We want to ask the Lord's blessings in that. All right, so as we go through this several rounds, we want to now then end our hydrotherapy remedy. So I'm going to begin by doing the same that I did when I ended the hot foot bath is I lift the feet up and I can pour some ice cold water on the feet, have a towel that we're going to make sure that we dry off the feet thoroughly, and I can move that and then place that down for the person to rest. And then next we're going to do the same cold mitten friction to the cheeks, all right? We can always also dry that area off, all right? And then we always want to finish with the cold mitten friction. So next, the cold mitten friction to the chest or the area wherever it's being applied to, and then we want to dry this area off. And then last but not least, we want to lift the person up, and then we can, this is the part that feels best to the back, all right? And then cold mitten friction to the back, and there we go. And then the person can rest for at least a half an hour. And like I said, it would be good to prepare your bed with a layer of plastic under the sheet because the person may sweat, and you want to make sure that the sweat is not pouring into your mattress. And let them stay here resting for at least 30 minutes. Once again, I want to point out that this is not only for colds, flu, viruses, things like that, but it can also be used for pain. You don't always need to have this set up for fomentations. Let's say someone, if you pulled let's say you were running and you pulled a hamstring, you can do a fomentation on your thigh. You can simply do a fomentation on your thigh. You can sit in a chair and do that. As I mentioned, maybe you pulled a muscle in your back. You can lay on your stomach and have someone do a fomentation on your back. Now, for pain, I mentioned that fomentations to the chest, typically about 3 minutes. Colds, flus, those types of things. For pain, usually a little longer, somewhere 4 to 6 minutes, and usually not as many, maybe 2 to 4 different fomentations would be good. I remember there was a man that I used to work on. He was a construction worker, and he would go and he'd pull his muscles in his back, and he would come, and I would put 2 fomentations on his back, and then I would do a little light massage for about 10 minutes, and then I would finish with 1 more fomentation, and he would be good as new, and he would go back out and start throwing around cinder blocks again. And so it's different depending on what you are working with. So that is our demonstration on fomentations. There again, friends, make sure you practice it. Get plenty of towels, get all your equipment, go back and watch that video on hot foot bath, and I'm sure the Lord will bless. Thank you.